WVEC TV plan.
It's time for Buttons Wave or Two, and here we go.
This is Jeff Goodday, ABC News.
Tonight on Focus, Jane Gardner reports on VEPCO's time of use program. The experiment where utility customers are charged not just for how much electricity they use, but also for when they use it. Some people say it's a way to save money. Others say they're washing clothes in the middle of the night and still paying more for electricity. Judith Baroody looks at the Port of Hampton Roads. It's vital to Virginia's coal economy. But like the coal fields, it's crippled by years of neglect. Graham Wilson says these runners are the beneficiaries of blood doping, transfusions of their own blood to increase stamina.
I'm Jane Gardner. We'll look at VEPCO's time of use experiment in a moment. Since 1977, VEPCO has been conducting an experiment called time of usage, where customers are billed on when they use electricity. It's supposed to conserve energy and save the consumer money, and apparently it can do this. The experiment may be expanded to include many more VEPCO customers soon, and some of the present participants warn that could mean you'll be doing midnight laundry. This is Tidewater's biggest user of electricity, the Naval Operations Base in Norfolk. Monthly VEPCO bill, 40,000 megawatt hours. That is 40 million kilowatt hours. Each time a ship plugs into the base power lines, it adds the equivalent of a small city to VEPCO's customer load. A city that needs huge amounts of electricity 24 hours a day. That makes NOB an unusual major industrial user. Most industries, like Asheville Mica in Newport News, run in the daytime, using electricity to power the machines that manufacture, in this case, mica insulators for other electronics firms. Whatever the product, industrial electric use is something VEPCO's planners know will be there every day. During the day, VEPCO generates lots of electricity to meet that need, using imported oil as well as less expensive coal and nuclear power plants. Residential electric use is more variable, depending on whether people are home in the daytime, whether it's hot enough for air conditioning, and so on.
If we bill or generate electricity during the hottest afternoon in the summertime, we're having to use imported fuel oil. Those kilowatt hours to run an electric appliance, air conditioning, as an example, cost twice as much as the same kilowatt hour that we generate in the middle of the night through one of our nuclear stations. So if we can have our customers help us by controlling when they use electricity, then it benefits all of us.
One way Division Marketing Manager Guy Bishop wants VEPCO customers to help is through the time of usage program.
We're under a State Corporation Commission order that goes back to June of 1977 to carry out the program which we are carrying out. The Commission, in ordering us to carry out this experiment, did it in an effort to try to control the increases in electric rates. Also, it had the thought, and we think correctly so, that it would be an encouragement for people to conserve natural resources.
The incentive is that at night, when demand is much lower, it's cheaper for time-of-use customers to do their housework. Time-of-use customers like the Gene Barker family in Norfolk. They aren't doing the housework.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Shirley Barker says it just isn't worth the effort.
I've tried staying on the program to a degree. I could not stay on it 100%, but I've tried working on it to a degree, doing wash at night and early in the morning, and I have found that my first bills I got were a little bit lower, but then I did not receive a comparison bill every month like they had said that I would, and then when I did receive the comparison bill, it was higher. So I say, why bother to do all that work late at night, early in the morning, rushing time to get through, and have my bill higher?
Mrs. Barker's bill isn't actually higher. She pays the regular electric rate, but has a special time-of-use meter. VEPCO installed it to show her how much money she'd save if the Barkers went on the time-of-usage program.
They said that we would probably show a 30% difference in the bill. Well, I can't see. We've never had a 30% difference in any of the bills. They said we would receive a bill once a month along with the regular VEPCO bill. We have not. In fact, I haven't received a comparison bill in the last 2 or 3 months.
Mrs. Barker figures the meter reader can't get past her dog. She doesn't think much of the power company anyway.
I guess if I don't participate, VEPCO's going to sock it to me, so I said, yes, we'll participate.
Not a very enthusiastic beginning. And because time of use is complicated, some willingness is required for you to save any money at all. You have to keep track of what time it is and how many appliances you're using at once. And in the summertime, the off-peak or cheaper hours change from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. And VEPCO apparently has had trouble communicating all this complexity to the program's participants. Do you remember how you found out that the time of use hours had changed from 9 to 9 to 10 to 10?
How did I find out? I sure did. You told me.
We didn't have to tell the people who live here anything about the program. In fact, Bill Chapin has told VEPCO a few things about it. Chapin, unlike the Barkers, volunteered for time of use. Why?
To save money, I thought.
And what have you found?
I found when I started on the program, I went down and I talked to an engineer at VEPCO to make sure that I wasn't, I had a good grip or an understanding of what was going to happen with this sophisticated meter, and that by reprogramming our lives so that we didn't do much during the 12-hour peak of the day, and particularly for the heating, which was all electric heat, I could save money.
Chapin's records show he saved around $270 the first year. You've kept pretty meticulous records, haven't you?
Yeah. I've read the meter for months at times, just morning and night, twice a day. The meter splits the day up into 2 12-hour segments. The daylight segment from 10 in the morning until 10 at night is on peak. You pay more for that period of time than you do from 10 at night until 10 the following morning. So we not only cut back on heat in rooms we didn't use, but we didn't run the washer or the dryer. I put a clock on the hot water heater so it didn't come on during those high energy hours. But when the rate is cheapest from 10 o'clock at night till 10 o'clock in the morning, when I first signed up and started the program, it was only $0.015 per kilowatt hour. And I just realized now that during the past 13 months, that has been the area where VEPCO has had the largest rate increase.
VEPCO says that's true, but that he should look at the overall rate for time of use, a complicated computation of the on-peak and off-peak rates, plus a demand charge. The overall rate has increased about as much as regular VEPCO rates. And, like the majority of time-of-use customers, overall, Bill Chapin has saved money. But
we've decided that the way the thing stands right now, with the new rates we have to pay, that saving 77 cents a day, 5 days a week, isn't worth it.
Mrs. Chapin isn't excited about the program either.
To me, it's like a cartoon. I see this housewife sitting around all day, and then at 10 o'clock, lurch. Pushing all the buttons. The oven cleaner goes on, the dishwasher goes on, the laundry goes on, the dryer goes on, and all of a sudden this nice quiet household becomes active at 10 o'clock at night.
VEPCO says time of use shouldn't require all that.
That's one of the things that time of usage is unfortunately suffering from, Jane, is the belief that I have to either, number one, completely change my lifestyle, or I have to wait till the middle of the night to do something. Really, the whole key to time of usage is keeping in mind that not to pile on top of one another the simultaneous use of major electric appliances.
For VEPCO, time of usage billing may be the key to future energy management.
We think that time of usage does have a place in the future.
Data from the experiment are being studied now to see if billing most people according to when they use electricity would lower rates and encourage conservation.
The concept does have, we think, practical applicability. Now, whether it will have practical applicability to each and every one of our million electric customers remains to be seen.
It may be practical, but it sure is confusing. And that's why, in spite of saving so much money, Bill Chapin sums up the program this way.
I feel time of use was a glorious experiment that was doomed to failure.
Some research at Old Dominion University has shown that transfusions of his own blood can help a runner run better. Graham Wilson reports on blood running.
Long-distance running, considered by many to be one of the most grueling and physically demanding competitions. Endurance is the key, and if a runner could find a way to strengthen his or her endurance, there would be a definite edge in the competition. 26-year-old Larry Schoaf is the swimming coach at Old Dominion University. He's also an avid runner. He was recently a participant in a research project in which he was given transfusions of his own blood to determine what effect it might have on his running ability. The study was conducted by Dr. Melvin Williams of the school's Human Performance Laboratory. In the 8-month study, 12 runners participated in the so-called blood doping.
Well, this is our third study we have conducted, and basically what you do in what we call blood doping is you take blood out of an athlete and freeze it for a period of time, and in that time period the athlete will then regenerate his own red blood cells. Then after a period of 6 to 7 weeks or so, you put the blood back into the athlete, and it creates a situation in his body where his hemoglobin levels or his red blood cell levels are increased tremendously. And this then should theoretically be beneficial during aerobic type events, that is endurance type events like long distance running and swimming and so forth.
What effects have you been able to get as far as monitoring some of the runners in the research?
Well, in the last two studies we had infused only 1 unit of blood, which is about a pint, and we found no beneficial effect. And these were 2 double-blind placebo experiments, the kind of experimental design you need for these particular kinds of studies. But the world literature, primarily those studies conducted in Scandinavia, have found beneficial effects, increases in maximal oxygen uptake, so-called max VO2, and tremendous increases in endurance capacity on the treadmill. But they had not used a double-blind design. But universally, all those studies had used about 2 units of blood, almost a quart or about a liter of blood. So we decided to do our third experiment with that same volume of blood. We did use a double-blind placebo protocol. It was a crossover experiment so that all subjects in the study took both the saline, which was the placebo, and the blood treatment. And we found a rather significant increase in performance, particularly in the 5-mile run time that our athletes did.
Schoaf says during one test, he noticed a definite improvement.
As far as the run, I didn't know which time I'd received the blood. But on my 4th run, in which I was injected the day before, while running at the beginning, I really didn't think I'd received anything. But I felt some effects that I hadn't felt on the other ones, where my wind wasn't very tired, my legs weren't getting tight, and I increased the speed as I went along, and I ended up dropping my time 2 minutes and 15 seconds from my baseline times of the 3 previous runs.
It was later discovered that run was after the blood transfusion. All of the Old Dominion tests were run on a treadmill, not in actual competition. Williams says the practice of blood doping is considered illegal in international competition, but it's hard to actually test for the transfusions.
Well, I think under current techniques, it's probably almost impossible to detect if a person had been so-called blood doped. I know at the 1980 Olympic Games in Moscow, the head of the medical commission indicated they would not test for blood doping, even though I think some athletes might be using the technique on the European sports scene. I have talked with somebody about it, about testing for it, and they said there is a possibility if you would have a blood sample, let's say a couple of weeks before the blood doping took place, then by doing some aging of the red blood cells, they might be able to detect whether the technique had been used or not. But as far as I know now, they don't plan to test for it, and it probably would be one of those techniques which would be very, very difficult to detect.
Now, looking at this as a coach, or besides being a participant, what are your views as far as even using this sort of technique in, say, some sort of competition?
I definitely think it would definitely enhance performance, but being against the NCAA rules and international rules, just right now that I'm not even thinking about trying to use it with any athletes, but I think down the road it could be very beneficial to, let's say, endurance swimmers and, of course, endurance runners.
That, says Williams, is the key. Any advantage to the transfusions would be to long-distance runners, not other athletes.
Blood doping would not be practical for anybody involved in speed-type events, sprinting or what have you, or football players who have ample time to recover. They are primarily speed-type athletes. It primarily is aimed for the endurance-type athlete. Again, going back to the point before, though, it's probably illegal under international Olympic competition and is not very practical as a means for the local road runner or so to increase his performance capacity or her performance capacity.
Williams says many individuals naturally have a high number of red blood cells in their bodies, but most outstanding runners have what is considered a normal level.
Studies which have been done with endurance runners like Bill Rogers and so forth have found these people to be relatively normal as far as hemoglobin levels are concerned. For example, the normal given for a male is somewhere around 15 grams of hemoglobin per 100 milliliters of blood. In our study, we found before we did the blood doping that pretty much held true. We had a range between 14 or 15 or so. But then when we put the blood in some cases it went to 16, some people as much as 17 and 18 grams per 100 milliliters of blood, which is around a significant increase in hemoglobin concentration. Some studies have been done with women who have a normally lower hemoglobin level than men, and most of those studies that have used small units of blood have not found increases in performance capacity, but another study which used a large volume of blood, like we have used, had shown an increased performance capacity in women.
And as far as the practice being outlawed, Williams points out that at one time, caffeine and alcohol were also considered illegal stimulants in international competition. But that rule changed with time, and the same may hold true for blood doping.
Governor Dalton says Virginia's coal business is in a shambles, and this week he ordered a state task force to help deal with the situation. Judith Baroody has found the key to solving the problem lies in breaking up a bottleneck.
Dozens of coal vessels outlined in the mist of the Port of Hampton Roads. It's a soothing sight, as subtle as an impressionistic painting. Comparing this vision to a famous work of art is apt in another way, too, because it's an expensive picture indeed. It costs the companies which charter the colliers some $15,000 a day in charter and crew fees to wait here to be loaded with coal, and the average wait at this harbor is 10 days to 2 weeks. Quick calculation shows these companies are paying upwards of $150,000 per vessel just to wait. Many of the colliers that load up in tidewater take the coal up along the east coast to New England, but others are from foreign countries, such as France and Japan. French coal interests were sufficiently upset about the backlog, which seems to be getting progressively worse, to request a meeting with the governor of Virginia. Dalton was flanked by Attorney General Marshall Coleman, Senator John Warner, and members of his cabinet. The French sent Albert Viala, vice president of the Technical Association of Coal Transportation, a quasi-governmental agency. At the meeting, Virginia's top officials outlined the causes of the delay in loading.
Part of the problem is perhaps finding a way to load the vessels faster. We're going to be looking into all of these things.
The problem has many parts. One is simply that some of the piers owned by the railroads could stand to be upgraded. One pier in Norfolk and one in Newport News are so antiquated that they can't even be used. And the demands being made on the piers this year are reaching a record level. Exports through Hampton Roads are 25% higher this year than same time last year. The highest level of coal exportation ever reached in Tidewater was back in 1957, during the Suez Canal crisis, when 51 million tons were churned out of Hampton Roads. Last year, some 34 million tons of coal passed through the port. There were more piers working back in the 50s, and the logistics of moving coal over land were less complicated, according to Jack Mace of the Hampton Roads Maritime Association. But the demand for coal has suddenly boomed the world over, and the governor says ports everywhere are struggling to meet the demand.
The problem is that we've got a worldwide transportation situation that has every port pretty well clogged up. It's not just Hampton Roads that's clogged up.
Why the sudden interest in coal? Until recently, 90% of the substance shipped through Hampton Roads was used for making steel, metallurgical coal. But much of the demand these days is for steam coal, a type used in generating electricity in many overseas plants and an increasing number of American plants. It's coal used instead of oil, OPEC oil. An aspect of the problem is that the blend of coal which rails 400 miles from the coal fields of Appalachia to Tidewater comes custom blended. The ships commissioned to load up a particular blend may not be at the pier when the coal is, and the ships that are there may not load up another collier's order, another cause of delay. Even once all these problems are solved, there's still another undertaking that some officials, especially Governor Dalton and Senator Warner, insist must be done: the deepening of the channel leading to the port. The channel is now 45 feet deep.
We have already been having public hearings by the Corps of Engineers on the dredging to 55 feet. We're looking at an expenditure of probably over $200 million just to get down to 55 feet to get the big coal vessels out. The total expense of that dredging will go on up over $300 million for the dredging of the Elizabeth River and the other projects.
At a recent news conference, Dalton said he plans to meet with rail officials in June to better coordinate the land arrival of custom-blended coal with the arrival of the ships chartered to carry it. He'll also discuss the possibility of upgrading coal piers here in Hampton Roads, a move which could provide jobs and a shot in the arm to the local economy.
We will be discussing with them their capital investment proposals if they need to upgrade those facilities. And we will be discussing with them, and I told them this when we met with them Monday, that if the state of Virginia or Port Authority can be of assistance in financing, we'll be glad to discuss that with them.
At the Richmond meeting, the French indicated their willingness to enter into long-term contracts, guaranteeing the railroads there will be a solid market for the transportation of the fuel for some time to come. Some speculate this assurance is the guarantee the railroads may be looking for before they begin upgrading the piers. And the longer-term solution, the deepening of the channel, that project will take a sea of red tape and politics and environmental impact statements before it can get underway. But what's the alternative? To lose what might be Virginia's chance to really cash in? The export of steam coal now stands at about 2 million tons a year. Senator Warner's office estimates that within a decade, the export of steam coal will skyrocket to 100 million tons a year. And the decisions being made now by the governor, the railroads, and foreign powers will determine whether the state's coal business will remain in a bottleneck or blossom into a bonanza.
The bottleneck of ships at Virginia ports isn't the only obstacle in utilizing coal power. Jim Kincaid sees lots more, and he says he has some solutions to the problems with coal.
During a number of the years I spent as a correspondent with ABC, my prime assignment was to study and report on the coal fields of the eastern United States. I spent a lot of time in those coal fields, reporting on the dangers of mining, the problems in using coal, the devastation inherent in poorly planned strip mining, and the people. Mainly the people of that region we often toss off as Appalachia. I preface my remarks with all this to give you the impression, and it's an accurate impression, that I do know more than just a little bit about coal. And I'd like you to believe that, because I have some strong opinions on the subject that I'm about to immodestly pass on to you. I just want to try to separate some of the facts about coal from the fiction about coal. because I very strongly believe we're missing a great bet in the war for energy independence. Coal mining is dangerous. That's a fact. And deep mining is far more dangerous than strip mining. That's also a fact. Another assertion, however, is pure and simple fiction, and that is that coal mining must be as dangerous as it is. Bull. The primary reason coal mining is as dangerous as it is the fact that many coal operators believe they can get more coal out of the ground at a lower cost if corners are cut here and there. The facts, however, don't bear out this fiction. The facts fairly scream out that the safe mining of coal, deep or strip, is always the most profitable. Coal mining in Appalachia can be carried out safely and profitably if just a few essential elements are put together. One, a Congress that can muster the courage to pass mine safety laws that work, a fair and constant system of mine inspection with some stiff penalties both for bad operators and careless miners, and an intensive training program for the men and lately women who go down into the heart of a mountain to dig this stuff. There's nothing new in there. Advocates of coal power have been calling for all those things for years, and they've been ignored for years. And then there's another fiction we must address, that coal can't be used safely because it pollutes the air. Well, there's just enough truth in there to allow the opposition to continue to make coal the stepchild of the energy industry. The fact is, the technology is available, and has been for years, to burn coal industrially as safely for the environment as oil. It's costly, very costly, and industry would prefer not to spend the money if it can be avoided. So it spends a lot of money on lobbyists to convince Congress that the whole idea is impractical and that a better way is to allow them to pollute. More bull, but it sells in Congress. Just now, coal mining is a depressed industry in Appalachia, but there's still enough being mined that you can go on almost any day to your friendly railroad tracks and sometime or another watch a train, endless in length, each of its cars loaded with tons of coal, most, if not all of it, headed for Germany and Japan. You know about Germany and Japan. They're the ones who lost World War II. Or did they? But that's another story. We're wasting our coal. We're wasting our money on oil it could easily replace. And we're wasting the lives of a lot of brave and hard-working people who could use the work our dependence on foreign oil has deprived them of. It's short-sighted, it's wasteful, it's impractical, and we're likely to keep on doing it. Sort of makes a fellow want to write a strongly worded letter, doesn't it? I'm Jim Kincaid.
Next week, join Jim Kincaid one-on-one with former Governor Mills Godwin. I'm Jane Gardner.